Okay, now for some serious conversation. The war launched by Russia in Ukraine has not only changed the lives of Ukrainians, but also shook the world order, influencing businesses on a large scale. Our next speakers will share firsthand accounts from over 100 women and girls from Ukraine whose stories show why getting back to business as usual is not an option. Please welcome researcher, project coordinator, and associate professor at Sumy State University in Kiev, Ukraine, Elena Davlikanova, and president of the Ukrainian Marketing Association, Iryna Lylyk.
Russian invasion has begun.
Russia launching a full-scale invasion of Ukraine.
Imagine unimaginable. Imagine that while you're sitting in this hall, your house has been ruined. Imagine that you learn about the death of your whole family from a YouTube video like this one. Imagine that you may be kidnapped, raped, tortured, and killed just for speaking your language and living on your land. Today, thanks to ANA, we have a chance to look into the events in the very heart of Europe that have shaken the whole world. We can look into the roles of women, but even more important, we can look into our roles as a real force for good. So when the unimaginable really happened and the international community didn't know what to believe, a group of Ukrainian researchers got together and decided to gather stories of Ukrainian women and girls who have faced things that not a single human being on the planet should ever encounter. And thanks to the Freddie Herbert Foundation, we have compiled a book of such stories, a little bit more than 100. These are the stories of service women and volunteers, of human rights activists, refugees, internally displaced women, mothers, daughters, sisters. These are real-life stories that they have shared with us in the framework of interviews or even wrote down themselves. And we are very grateful to them for sharing. And we are also very grateful to all those organizations and people who helped us to find these women and who also shared photo materials. So let me present just a couple of these stories to you today. And the first chapter is devoted to the service women. Currently, there are more than 50,000 women in the armed forces of Ukraine, and about 1,000 of them are high-rank officers. Please meet Lyudmila Dolganovska, advisor to the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine on strategic communications. Let's hear her out.
Hello, I am Lyudmila Dolganovska, the advisor on strategic communications to the Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. This war is a war against existential threat. The Ukrainian nation struggles for its freedom for ages. We ought to prevent our kids from inheriting this war. So I'm doing my job on my forefront for common needs as well as for my son's future. The ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine is literally broadcasted online, and its information domain is vital in support of kinetic actions. that the communication team of the Armed Forces of Ukraine is working hard to tell the world the truth about genocide of our people in the center of Europe in the 21st century. And of course, to tell the truth about the heroic fight of our brave soldiers. In fairy tales which I read to my son, the good and truth always defeated evil and lies. My responsibility is to bring it to life.
And it is my honor today to present stories of two servicewomen. The first one is the story of Amber. She is a very experienced sniper. This January, her contract expired and she decided to take a break. But this break was so short that she didn't even have enough time to unpack her backpack. She told that she was very happy that finally the whole world can see Russia's true face. And here is another servicewoman with the code name Sunshine. After the beginning of the full-scale invasion, she gathered her family, her husband and two kids, and she said she felt that it was her mission to go and protect motherland. After some training, she went to the front line and now is fighting for the freedom of Ukraine. One more chapter is devoted to the fates of the children. And on this picture, you can see 109 empty baby strollers. This is how many children were killed only in the first months of war. This is the story of a 9-year-old Lera. Together with her sister Iryna, they were evacuated by their parents, but unfortunately this attempt wasn't successful. On the way, this car was shot and the girls witnessed the death of their parents. Then Russians came and they separated the girls and left Lera in the nearest village. This girl doesn't have a family anymore. One more chapter is devoted to horrific experiences of people who undergone occupation or were very close to the enemy. Please meet Tatiana, a 75-year-old retiree from Mariupol. Mariupol was a very beautiful, very prosperous industrial and port city. Unfortunately, this city doesn't exist because it was shelled so severely that almost nothing has left out of it. People who didn't escape in the first hours had no electricity, no heat. If they wanted to get water, they had to melt snow. If they wanted to cook, they had to go and gather wood and then cook on the open fire. They took care of the wounded with very little medicines that they had at home, and they had to bury the dead in the front yard of their condominiums. It is luckily that Tatiana managed to escape finally, and now she is with her daughter in the European Union. But at least 85,000 Ukrainian civilians died in Mariupol alone. This is Svetlana, a happily expecting mother. She thought that she would give birth to her child in a warm, cozy hospital ward. But instead, she had to do so in a cold basement which served as a bomb shelter. She said she would never forgive Russians for this experience. And one more topic that we cannot omit. Russians use sexual violence as an instrument of war. They rape children, both girls and boys. They rape women and they rape men. And unfortunately, the number of these cases is so huge that it's really very tragic. And please have a look at the story of one of the survivors. This story is told by an actress, and as you understand, for obvious reasons, we do not tell her name. Let's look.
The war in Ukraine started back in 2014, and since then the fact of the rape of Ukrainian women by soldiers of the Russian army have been recorded. It was January 15, 2015. I once again went to the anti-terrorist operation zone to take warm things and food to our guys. When I left Mariupol, 2 cars suddenly appeared and pushed me straight off the road to the forest. The cars of the Donetsk People's Republic separatists pushed my car into the forest lane. I had to stop. They grabbed me by force, pulled me out of the car, threw me to the ground. I was immediately hit in the face with the buttstock. They knocked out all my teeth, broke my arm. They tore off my clothes and stabbed out cigarettes against my body. There were 8 of them in total. 6 were local separatists, and 2 other were Russians. It was clear from their pronunciation. People spend weeks, months, or even years in captivity. I spent 40 minutes. Those were the most terrifying 40 minutes of my life.
One more chapter is devoted to the stories of refugees and internally displaced women who are looking for shelter elsewhere. There are over 5 million refugees and a couple of million of internally displaced people in Ukraine. Here is Elzara, an artist, and she is also a Crimean Tatar. You might know that in the Soviet times, Crimean Tatars were forcefully displaced from Crimea, and Elzara's family came back to Crimea after Ukraine got its independence. But in 2014, when Crimea was annexed by the Russian Federation, they had to get their stuff and move out and start their life from scratch again. They did so in Bucha, and this year Russians came after them one more time. Elzara's new home doesn't exist anymore, it was totally ruined. And she is now in the European Union, where she continues painting and thus telling our stories to the world. Ulyana Pcholkina was helping to all the people that she could help since the first day of the war. Together with her husband, they have become internally displaced people, but they were trying to evacuate people with spinal cord injuries, because such people cannot stay in bomb shelters. It is too cold and they may face kidney failure. Unfortunately, not all her efforts were successful. Once, she received a call from her friends who were saying goodbye because they knew they will not survive the occupation. And one more very important chapter is devoted to people who helped Ukraine so much. These are activists, volunteers, and also women who are working in Ukraine and thus supporting its economy in the darkest times. Please meet Daria, HR director of a big agricultural holding. Daria has to make very hard decisions these days. Whether she should allow tractor drivers to join the armed forces of Ukraine, or should she make them stay and work on the land, because global food security depends on Ukraine. And this is Anastasia, a train attendant. All the trains in Ukraine turned into evacuation trains in the first day of the full-scale invasion. Her train was shelled, and as a result, she got wounded, but her friend and colleague was killed. And this is a very dear friend of mine, a professor of marketing from the west of Ukraine, who from the very first day of the invasion was helping hundreds and hundreds of people who were looking for shelter. She is also a cancer survivor, and unfortunately, 3 weeks ago, cancer came back again and she had to undergo a series of operations. Her friends didn't know about that, and when we found out, we asked her, why didn't you tell us, why didn't you ask us for help? And she said, I cannot do that because there are so many people who need help, way more than I do right now. Another chapter is devoted to women who are helping Ukraine and contributing to its victory from all over the world. And you might have heard that Russians have death lists of people with pro-democratic, pro-Ukrainian position. They include names of decision makers, of human rights advocates, of activists, and even the names of the teachers of Ukrainian language and literature. I would like to introduce Iryna Zemlyana, an activist and a journalist, whose name was in one of those lists. She, together with her With her friends, she managed to stop transfer of goods from the European Union to Russia on the border of, on borderline of Poland. Please hear her out.
Hi, I am Iryna. I am media expert and security trainer from Ukraine, and now I am a refugee. I need to move from Ukraine when the war started because the Russians put me in the list with activists which they want to kill. So I moved to Poland, and we were blocking Polish-Belarusian border for trucks who are going from Europe with the goods through Belarus to Russia. It was a big fighting, but we win. And after that, you can know me with the incident with the Russian ambassador in Warsaw in 9th of May. Somebody put a bit of juice to him as a symbol that the Russians killed Ukrainians. And the Russian media started to say that it was me. So I received 100,000 of threats. And now I need to hide in. They opened a criminal case in Russia and they're trying to use Interpol to find me. That's how Russia works. So I ask you, all businesses, please don't work with Russian. Please don't have any business, any connection with Russian, because today you can be friends, but tomorrow they can come to kill you. Slava Ukraini!
Another very important front line is the diplomatic front line and also the decision-making level. Please meet Galina Yanchenko, our member of parliament and also the chairperson of the Committee on Investors' Rights Protection. Among very many initiatives that she has launched, one is very specific. It is called Boycott Russia. She says as long as they, the companies, remain in Russia, they are complicit in murders of Ukrainians. It is cynical and hypocritical to continue earning money in Russia because this is bloody money, obtained at the cost of lives of Ukrainian children and women. And I would like to urge you to also consider coming back to Ukraine as soon as you can. Our government has reached agreements with Multilateral Investment Guarantee Agency and Development Financial Corporation that any risks attributed to war, to losses as a result of war, may be insured. So please consider it, and if you need help in building bridges between your company and our government and decision makers, please address us and we will be able to help you with that. And one more outstanding person, Alexandra Matvichuk. She is a well-known human rights advocate, and she is also this year's Nobel Peace Prize winner. Please hear her story.
We work with dozens of regional organizations in the Initiative Tribunal for Putin. There are 11,990 criminal episodes in our joint database. Our human rights initiative alone has collected such a huge amount of cases. We need international support, and we are talking about the need to create an international hybrid tribunal.
The tribunal has been created, and now it is our common task to make these people accountable. And of course, we cannot forget about those people whose lives was taken by this war. On April 23rd, a missile killed 3 generations of women in Odessa, a 3-month-old Kira, her mother Valeria, and grandmother Lyudmila. Katerina Dyachenko was a future gymnast champion. Her mother witnessed how a ceiling of their own apartment fell on the girl and killed her. This is Yulia Zhdanovska, a genius in programming and mathematics. She used to teach children in school, and she had a dream. It was her volunteer work. And she had a dream that every child in Ukraine would have access to high-quality mathematics education. When she died being a volunteer in Kharkov, in the very heart of this city, as a result of shelling, A professor of Massachusetts Institute of Technology launched a program called Yulia's Dream, and now Ukrainian children have access to some projects of one of the most prominent educational establishments in the world. This is Sergeant Katerina Stupnitska. She was only 26 when she was killed while helping Ukrainian soldiers on the battlefield. This is Marina Kalabina. She is a doctor, she was a doctor, and unfortunately she was killed when she was trying to evacuate her wounded nephew from the occupied territory. Lydia Panchenko, a retiree, she was 85. She survived Nazi occupation during the Second World War, but she didn't survive the occupation by Russians. A tank entered her village, stood in front of her home and just shoot, knowing that she was inside. Margarita, her two sons and her husband Alexander had to flee in 2014 from the occupied Donbass. They built their new life in Bucha, but unfortunately it was taken away from them. They were shot 800 meters away from their home when they tried to evacuate. Only Alexander survived, but he lost his leg. Olga Sukhenko is a very courageous woman. She was the head of the village of Motyzhin, and from the very first day she was helping every person who was trying to find shelter in there. She was kidnapped together with her son and her husband, and after the occupation, their bodies were found in a mass grave. They were tortured and then killed. We also have the stories of widows, and Olga Stefanishina lost her husband, and her two daughters lost their father. While Iryna said that she lost her unborn children and that she lost her future life. Events that are now happening in Ukraine are already called genocide by a number of countries. So I ask you again, please do everything you can to help restore justice and not sponsor genocide of Ukrainians. And now it is my honor to introduce the president of the Ukrainian Marketing Association and founder of the Industrial Gender Committee on Advertising, Iryna Lylyk. She will tell her story. Please.
Ukrainian Marketing Association unites more than 2,000 marketers. And as its president, I ask you, do not trade with Russia. Please bring your business back to Ukraine. And now I want to tell my stories. Me, my daughter, and two small child, we are staying in Belgium. We left Ukraine because every time saying to them good night, it felt to me as it's good last goodbye. And I did not know I would see them in the morning because Russia bombed us at 9 and in the day. And I want to tell stories for about my friend Natalia, whose brother was killed on the third day of the war, whose house was raped by Russians, and who was one of the first of us who returned home. We met, and I told, I really want to go home. And she told me, I understand. You want to come back in your old time, to things as they used to be, but it does not exist anymore. Your life, your home, whole Ukraine is changes like you and me. And if we are able to come back, it depends on you as agents of positive changes. And I would like to tell thanks A&A, not only for opportunity to speak today, but for all projects we are doing together. Thank you.
These are just several out of 100 stories and just 100 out of 44 million. And before we finish this presentation, I would like to show you how beautiful our country was before the war and how beautiful it will be after our victory. Thank you for hearing the voices of the Ukrainian women.
Thank you for standing with Ukraine.
You obviously have the appreciation of an audience.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your courage. Thank you for your country's courage. Talk to us about what your hopes are in terms of the way American business and industry can support you. You talked about boycotts. Have other countries done what you are asking for us to do? Tell us a little bit about that.
I came to the United States this May. As part of the delegation, we visited Washington, D.C., and we had meetings on the Hill. Together with other Ukrainian women, courageous women, including Alexandra, we were asking for weapons. That's the most important now for Ukraine, because we don't want only peace talks. When someone says we should agree on peace, I am afraid what exactly these people mean. Because we need to say we want Ukraine to win. Because unless it wins, there will be no peace, not only in our country.
Right.
There will be no peace globally. So what we are asking from everyone who can help is please talk to your people, congressmen, congresswomen, talk to people on the Hill. Please ask them to continue military support to Ukraine. Please also consider investments in Ukraine, because they can be insured today. And well, whatever you can do, if even you cannot, really contribute as big funds, or you will not talk to politicians, even if you can help one Ukrainian, provide one scholarship, provide a possibility to work for one marketer or whoever else, please do so, because it changes people's lives.
Anything you want to add to that? Good. Let's take some questions from the audience. Heartbreaking and inspiring, thank you for sharing. What is something every person in this room, not just companies or country, but what could every person in this room do to help?
Well, as I said already, please just look around. There are so many Ukrainians who require all kinds of help. Sometimes people need a place to stay. Sometimes they need work. Someone needs maybe a scholarship for studies. Maybe you can, again, talk to politicians. And even if you just talk to your neighbors, and if you remind about these real tragic events, in Ukraine about genocide, and convince people and explain them after this presentation that there is no, in between. It is a fight of the good and the evil. And between what is easy and what is right, people need to choose what is right now.
Yeah.
I'm going to go to... I'm sorry, excuse me. Please.
I want to ask the questions
Sure.
for Ukrainian marketing.
You go right ahead, please.
Yeah, Lena, Ви питаєте, що саме ми робимо сьогодні, що робить Українська асоціація маркетингу. Сьогодні ми підтримуємо людей, які з регіонів, які є окуповані, переїхали, змогли переїхати до інших регіонів.
When you're asking what Ukrainian Marketing Association is doing right now, Ukrainian Marketing Association, because it has a very wide network all over Ukraine, is helping people that are becoming internally displaced people or those who are fleeing from Ukraine to other countries. So we are helping women, children and men who are looking for shelter.
І друге, що ми робимо, ми підтримуємо, ми продовжуємо працювати і ми підтримуємо професійно маркетологів.
And we also continue working and we continue supporting marketologists professionally.
І я хочу, користуючись цією нагодою, сказати, що я дуже вдячна NAA за підтримку саме цих проєктів.
And I would like to express my deepest gratitude to ANA for your support of so many really important projects that we have established together.
Понад 10 студентів, понад 10 університетів, вони змогли скористатися програмою mentorship. Викладачі 12 університетів українських, вони змогли скористатися Visitors Professors програми. Наші маркетологи змогли скористатися сертифікаційними програмами.
So at the moment, more than 10 universities were able to use your programs for students. More than 12 used mentorship programs, and our teachers are also using the possibilities that you are providing for them.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we've just heard an incredible story of courage, an incredible story of strength, and an incredible story to continue the fight. You have our commitment to continue to support you, and we will not rest until your battle is won. Elena and Iryna, thank you very, very much. Thank you. Thank you. Okay.